Hey everybody, my name's Elisa. I'm back. We're doing the endocrine system, and this time we're going to go over the adrenal glands, right? The adrenal glands. The adrenal glands sit conveniently and strategically above the kidneys, and the reason why is not only does the kidneys host like an absolutely huge percentage of the body's blood, but they are constantly filtering that blood, so they always have an idea of kind of the needs of the body, right? So it's a really good place as well as it's a quick distribution system. So if we needed to dump adrenaline into the body relatively rapidly, we are in a perfect organ adjacent system to do so. And the adrenal glands are composed of an adrenal cortex and an adrenal medulla. So the cortex is always on the outside, and the medulla is in the mid or middle part as well. So those are the two main areas. Surrounding it is this protective connective tissue capsule, right? So here is another layer. And so when we take a look at the adrenal cortex, we actually see like it's subdivided out into a whole bunch of different specialized layers. The zone or the zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, the zona reticularis, and then the medulla, the adrenal medulla is underneath, right? And so that's kind of subdividing it out. Let me see, let me get it right there. Okay. So let's talk about those layers. So the adrenal medulla is the innermost core, and it's about 10 to 20% of the entire gland, um, percentage-wise. It has a dual nature. It acts as an endocrine gland and a ganglion of the sympathetic nervous system. So it's kind of like a merged capital there. It's innervated by, of course, you would imagine, these sympathetic preganglionic fibers, and it consists of modified sympathetic postganglionic neurons called chromaffin cells. And so basically, the neuronal system is the email super fast response, and sometimes some of those responses that need to happen fast need to happen very powerfully. So this is like an intersection of how we would regulate quick, like very rapid release of um, an endocrine secretion such as adrenaline that has a wide impact all over the body. But this is something that can be done based on how the neurons, right, or even the brain is perceiving, say, the environment. So that would be the stimulus, is basically the brain deciding it's time to be stimulated. And so when it is stimulated, it releases catecholamines. So this is ephedrine and norepinephrine. And so it also has trace of dopamine directly into the bloodstream as well. So um, epinephrine, as you may know, is uh, a, a group class of like very powerful stimulants that can react or elicit reactions from many, many different types of tissue types. And they do kind of interesting things because they activate and deactivate different parts of the body hard and fast. As hormones, these catecholamines have multiple effects. So they increase alertness in the body. They prepare you for the fight or the flight. They are going to get nutrients where they need to be so that your cells can use them in case you need to burst that energy. They also get all the enzymes liked up or lined up for things like glycogenolysis, right? So glycogen is a large storage molecule of carbohydrates. Blah, tongue twister there. And gluconeogenesis, right? So we're creating glucon by the liver, and this is going to boost our glucose levels in the bloodstream, right? Making that bioavailable. Epinephrine inhibits insulin secretion, so it has a glucose sparing effect as well. Um, so the muscles are going to switch over, use fatty acids, and they're going to be saving the glucose for the brain to use because the brain really needs to burn a lot of sugar in order to operate at high capacity. It's going to increase the heart rate, the blood pressure, and the general blood flow specifically to places like the muscles and like actually away from places like your digestive tract or your urinary system, right? So it gets you ready to run and to stop eating and stop doing things like resting and digesting. So the adrenal cortex, as you can imagine, is the cortex, or the area that's surrounding the medulla or the middle center part of the adrenaline gland. It's secreting several different corticosteroids, which are a type of hormone. And it's important that we have these three layers of glandular tissue because they are all going to have different types of secretions. So the zona glomerulosa is a thin outer layer. So we have cluster type cells that are a little bit rounded, and they are going to manage the body's electrolyte balance by secreting a mineral, right, electrolytes, corticoids. Zona fasciculata is a thick middle layer, and these are going to be arranged in kind of circles with a separate um, capillaries between them. So these are called the fascicles, right? And these are going to push out things like glucocorticoids, oh, sorry, tongue twister sometimes, androgens as well. So very diverse functions. So the zona reticularis, like because it's reticulated, is narrow and it's the most inner of this layer. And these cells are going to be arranged in kind of like a looking like a little bit of a branch, treed out, kind of like a tree, if you will. So these are also going to be secreting glucocorticoids as well as some of the sex steroids. Mineralocorticoids, let's talk about these a little bit. So these are from the zona glomerulosa. So they're steroid hormones that are going to regulate electrolyte balance. Uh, Aldosterone is going to stimulate sodium retention and potassium excretion, actually. So water is going to be retained with that sodium because water loves to go wherever sodium is by osmosis. Blood volume and blood pressure are going to be kind of regulated and maintained by that. So the other part is part of the renin, so it's the angiotensin aldosterone or the RAA, say renin, angiotensin, aldosterone. So you get it? RAA system? Glucocorticoids are secreted by the zona vesiculata and the zona reticulata, right, in response to ACTH. So they're going to be regulating metabolism of glucose and other fuels of the body, especially in these times of flight or fight. Um, you'll see stress hormones such as cortisol and corticosteroids stimulating fat and protein catabolism, gluconeogenesis, glucose from amino acids and fatty acids, and the release of some of these fatty acids and glucose directly into the blood to provide fuel. We also help the body to adapt to stress as much as we do repair issues as well. Some of what we see is actually a reduction in the inflammation response because we're suppressing the immune system, and this can actually be problematic. So people with like high overproductive adrenaline glands might experience an anti-inflammatory effect because of this long-term immune suppression. So secreted by the zona fasciculata and the zona reticularis are the sex steroids, to which androgens and the estradiol. So androgens are going to be setting your libido throughout life, and they also play a large role in prenatal male development, including DHEA, which other tissues are going to be able to use to convert to the very important hormone testosterone. Estradiol, we get a little bit from the adrenaline gland, but after menopause, it becomes really important because we start losing that bone mass. Remember, we're going from like a 10% to an 8%, and so estradiol plays like a little bit of a part in that retention. The medulla and the cortex of the adrenaline gland are not actually functionally independent, right? So they need each other. So the medulla is going to shrink without the stimulation of cortisol, which is going to be, something that the cortex is going to be responsible for. And so some of the chromaffin cells in the medulla, sorry, or medulla, it's actually totally the same, are going to be extending themselves into and connecting, communicating with the cortex. So they're going to be specifically asking, stimulating the cortex to secrete corticosteroids when stress activates that sympathetic nervous system so they can solicit that big boost in response. Oh, I guess that's it. So there's a lot more interesting stuff out there, but at least for us and for right now, here's a good foundation. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you're out there somewhere having a wonderful day. Bye-bye.